Roll mats. They're really handy, but a bit boring. So let's try and fix that. So I've been playing a lot of the Mordheim PC game, and one of the best things about this game, in my opinion, is the floor. It's full of stuff and really interesting, so I want to try and make that happen on my wargaming board. So to make these yourself, you'll need some bits of timber. I picked these up at about 6 for 12 quid. A saw and an angle saw. If you've got a mitre saw, it's much easier, but I didn't, so I sawed it properly. And a flat board. And then all you do, once you've cut the 45-degree angles into your side bits, is you glue them onto your piece of board, leave it to cure and dry overnight, put some screws in it, and then you're away ready to put foam in. You can use polystyrene for this. I've used this blue foam because I had it to hand, and it's a bit better than polystyrene, but honestly polystyrene will work just as good and be much cheaper. In hindsight, I kind of wish I'd used polystyrene, but we'll get to that later. The good thing about this blue foam is you can literally press detail into it. And I just experimented a little bit with this texture roll I've had for ages, and I normally put this in acrylic caulking, but I thought I'd just try putting it straight into the blue foam. And it worked much better just with my bare hands. I thought I'd try using a paintbrush roller, and it wasn't very even, so I resorted to just brute forcing it with my fist, and that worked pretty well. Now this is where it all went wrong. I used lots of the acrylic montage glue to stick my board down, thinking, it's meant to take 60 kilos of weight, it'll definitely keep my board secure. But in doing this, I actually warped my entire board. So my double-sided board project, which it was going to be, ended up being a single-sided board project and a future headache. So don't use this stuff, or if you're going to use it, spread it out evenly. Don't do what I just did. But while that was all drying, got my 3D printer on, and I started making some interesting stuff to dig into this board. I've got the basic texture down, the basic sort of cobblestone texture, but I wanted some interesting things to put in there. So I printed all this stuff off, and I found my bits box full of broken bits and skulls and bricks. And I started having to think about where I'd like them to go. Normally, where the texture, I haven't put the texture on. I kind of stole this idea from 3D Print Games, from Adam over there, who does a really good version of this for Kill Team. So head over his channel, links in the description if you have a look into. But all I'm going to do is dig holes into the board, so the detail is flush with the board and just is very, very seamless, so you can put terrain on top of it without getting in the way of your wargaming. So this way it's totally flush to the surface, and you can put whatever you want on it whilst making the board still interesting. You just glue these in with some regular white glue, and away you go. Really easy. I had some bigger areas, and looking at this video you can see that board warping and bouncing, and this became a problem for the entire build. But I make mistakes, so you didn't have to. So yeah, make sure your board's down solid. I didn't even know it was a problem until I got to the end. But enough problems. Solutions. I found that gouging was way more effective than cutting with a craft knife. So I gouged everything else. It made it way easier, way faster, and I think it was more accurate and less likely to shove a craft knife into my hand. So that's what I did. I gouged all the holes out. Got some sewers, got some skulls. They were really satisfying to gouge the skull holes out. Got a chaos shield back there in the background that goes in. I'm going to throw some sand on it. It's just regular sand, regular wood glue, and just a bit of extra texture, just to make things interesting. Try and keep it as varied and interesting as I can. That mouth's really cool. You're going to see more of that later. As well as an evil chaos symbol and a Sigmarite hammer. Now if you're not playing Mordheim on this, I'm playing Mordheim, but if you're not playing Mordheim, you could use this for all sorts of games. Just cover up the offending items you don't want. Now I didn't want to do it just grey, that was just going to be boring, so I used loads of green paint, loads of brown paint, and then the majority colour on this was a cobalt sort of petrol blue that I really like. And I didn't want it to be boring grey, so I thought I'd add loads of colours to it. So I liberally labbed it all on, mixed it all together, and you can already see those big splotchy areas looking quite interesting. I just tried to make it look as varied and interesting as I could. And this is how it looked when it was dry. Another problem I had was the big seam in the middle of those two pieces of foam. I really wish I'd spent some more time and made that more seamless and less of a big horrible mess. But again, I make mistakes, so you don't have to. And then I get a really big makeup brush and I just dry brush the living hell out of the board. It's a really satisfying process to dry brush a board with this much detail on. And it took me a very long time. But it's totally worth it. I start with the high detail areas and then I work towards the brickwork later on. You get about halfway and you think you're not getting anywhere. You have to sometimes take a step back and go, yeah, actually I'm getting somewhere. It is starting to look better. I also stippled some areas, a bit of a more extreme grey. And there's the dry brush board. Like you can see that big gap in the middle is a problem, but we'll deal with it later. Now I really want this mouth to look good, but I didn't want it to be too obnoxious. And I wanted all these brown panels to be nice and different, so I just used some speed paints on all of the details. I didn't want it to jump out too much, because if it's too pronounced, it will take over the entire board. And I just wanted it to be interesting things you find while playing. I don't want these details to make the board break the board. So just playing with some watered down paints or some speed paints, picking whatever colours you want. I ink and dry brush over the top of everything anyway, so don't worry if it's not very muted, if it's too bright and vibrant, especially with this giant blood red moor. And you're just making it look a bit more interesting as you go along it. Once you've painted everything, lob some more PVA glue, some wood glue down, and then I'm going to add a bit of, it's grass tufts, but the weird grass tufts. And here's a little handheld hoover. This is the best thing I've ever bought because you can just suck off the wanted details and it saves you making a massive mess all over the floor. When I was finished, I got some pictures and some posters that I've printed off from Devs and Dice, who makes those posters. He makes amazing Mordheim terrain. If you haven't checked him out, go and check him out. And when it's all done, I just give it a good spray with a watered down matte sealant. And that's the entire board. You've got a horrible chaos symbol amongst the sewers, some wooden planks and skulls, and just lots of little interesting bits of cursed terrain city all over the floor. You can put your terrain any way you like. It can be over these details, it can be around these details. The details don't have to matter, they just give you something else to look at when you're playing your games in Mordheim. And that was really what I wanted to do. I wanted to make my board more interesting. So what do you think? This is really easy to do, even though I made some mistakes along the way. Have a go yourself. Don't make the mistakes I made. And yeah, I'll catch you in the next one. Keep on crafting.